Hello guys, Nika here. Hope you guys are all doing okay. Bear with me. I know the lighting situation isn't the best, so I'm over here lighting candles. So hopefully we don't have a freak accident, because we don't need that on a Saturday. Or at all, right? So honestly, I'm a little bit ashamed to tell you this, but I'm going to do it because we're besties. So I work 80-hour weeks, guys. I have two jobs, and I am usually exhausted come Saturday. So I try to do something to kind of get out of the house and decompress. But today I just didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I mean, I had plans and then I didn't. And instead I said, you know what? I'm going to stay indoors and just read this affidavit. The entire freaking thing. So since yesterday night, into today, I read the entire thing, not one word skipped. And it's excessive, I know, but I am that type of person. I'm like, I like excess, excess is good. But I'm also a puzzle person, and I love solving puzzles, and I like finding solutions to things. So the fact that I can't seem to find a solution, I can't solve this puzzle, is very I need to get to the bottom of it. I don't want to say frustrating, because to me it's like interesting. Like, I need to get to the bottom of it. And part of me is just interested in this whole thing, but the other part of me, you guys know, as a veteran, our rights are imperative. It's so important that we all understand how important it is to keep our rights and to make sure that they're not taken away, that they're not stripped. And in this case, I see some rights potentially being stripped. I want Bryan Kohberger to have a fair trial, because in this beautiful country, the United States of America, you are not guilty until they can prove it. You are innocent until proven guilty. Innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around. I know that people like to say, oh, everything points to the direction of Bryan being guilty, so he's guilty. No. Innocent until proven guilty. And if you don't like it, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is America. That is what I believe in, and what a lot of Americans also believe in. So we need to make sure that our rights are kept by us. But since I'm a loser, I took notes here on my laptop, which is I keep staring over there, when I was skimming through the affidavit, because again, I want to solve this puzzle. And the more I look at this affidavit, the more it seems that puzzle pieces were just jammed together, and they're trying to make it fit. By they, I'm referring to the prosecutors, meaning the state of Idaho, and law enforcement, because I went and typed out this timeline and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Now, this doesn't mean that Bryan didn't do it or that Bryan was not involved, but in my personal opinion, when you actually sit down and do the math, because there's basic math, and when you do this basic math, you'll realize it's like impossible to do what they're saying he did. Now, he still may have been involved in it in some other way, potentially, but it just seems so unlikely that this guy alone committed this horrendous crime within this timeline that law enforcement and investigators are giving us. It doesn't fit. And part of me wants to say, yeah, this doesn't work. I mean, this should just get thrown out, because this alone, there's no way. And I want everybody to question this timeline. You need to question this timeline, because the basic person, the average person, is going to take the timeline that the investigators gave them at the bottom of this affidavit and just run with that. They're going to run with the 4 to 4:25 timeline and say, well, he had 25 minutes to commit the homicides. So yeah, 25 minutes is a long time to unalive 4 people. He could have done it. But then you read the affidavit, you're like, okay, but that timeline isn't matching that timeline. WTF. So pay attention to this timeline. Interesting. says 3:29 a.m. starting and ending at 4:20. Multiple sightings of suspect vehicle 1. By the way, suspect vehicle 1 is Bryan's car, allegedly. 4 a.m. Residents asleep, or at least in their rooms, except for one of the victims who received a DoorDash. 4 a.m. After originally going to sleep, DM was awoken by a sound who she thought was one of the victims playing with a dog. 4:04. Suspect vehicle entering area 4th time can be seen on King Road, stopping and turning around in front of 500 Queen Road, driving back westbound, unsuccessfully attempts to park or turn around in road. Continues to Queen Road, King Road intersection, which is a 3-point turn, then eastbound again, down Queen Road. That was at 4:04. 4:12. Coronado likely awakened using TikTok app. 4:17. Neighboring security camera less than 50 feet away picks up sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. You can also hear the dog in the background barking. 4:20. Suspect vehicle 1 next seen departing the area of King Road residents at a high rate of speed. Okay, so in the bottom here, you're giving me the 4 to 4:25 timeline. But through the affidavit, you're telling me that you're seeing Bryan's car entering the area at 4:04 and then leaving at 4:20. Wouldn't that be the accurate timeline? It would be if it was Bryan that did it. It would actually be 4:04 to 4:20. Okay, so 20 minus 4, basic math, guys, 16 minutes. Okay, that's 16 minutes. Why did they extend that timeline? Why did they say 4 to 4:25? The car wasn't there yet. Or it was gone already. That, to me, is icky. And it's iffy. And it smells, if it smells like it and if it looks like it, it's because it is, right? I don't know. I think so. Now, again, they just tacked on an extra, few minutes to the timeline. Okay, they tacked on an extra 4 minutes in the front. And why? Why? And I know why. It's because, again, the average person is going to be like, 4 to 4:25 homicides, yes, 25 minutes. When in reality, it's actually vehicle 4:04, 4:20. 16 minutes, guys, not 25 minutes, okay? I hope the people involved in this case notice that. 16 minutes. You're going to tell me Bryan unalived 4 people in 16 minutes. Not only that, but he also cleaned everything, right? Because they didn't really find any actual DNA or anything else. They just found a tiny little bit of his DNA in a tiny little sheath, in a tiny little button inside the sheath. That's it. Interesting. And they did find DNA of 3 other people, but of course, that doesn't need to be tested, right? Now, when you look at the 16-minute timeline, you also have to take into account the fact that Bryan had never been to this house before, never, that we know of. And I understand, yes, somebody messaged me today and said, well, you can find the house on Zillow. Sometimes those things they're not updated. And even if they are, if he had never been in there before, how do you know who is in which room? You still have to go in there, be extra sneaky, be extra creepy, make no noise, stumble around in the dark. In 16 minutes? And what's crazy is that the timeline would actually be shorter if you consider the time that it would take to park, to get out of the house, to get into the house, and then the time it's going to take to get out also. Let's add another 3 minutes to that. Because I've seen the house. it would, let's say about 3 minutes. So 3 minutes to get out of the vehicle into the house, and then on the way out, another 3 minutes. That's 6 minutes. That means your timeline has now shrank to 10 minutes versus 16. 10 minutes when the homicides potentially occurred. Do you really think that Bryan could unalive 4 people? Not to mention that one of them was, he was a big guy. He's a big dude. I don't think he just would have been like overpowered that easily. And from the affidavit, it sounds like there were signs that there was a struggle, that, you know, people are assuming that, you know, Ethan had tried to defend himself or maybe his girlfriend when this happened. So it's not like you're just going in there and, you know, like 1 second, done, next, done. And you're going through different floors as well in 10 minutes, and then you're leaving like no DNA anywhere in 10 minutes. And somebody also cleaned, right? Somebody also cleaned, because that footprint that was found with dye. It wasn't like they just found it like it was obvious, you know. It was a bloodied footprint found after it had been checked. So there was evidence that it had been somebody had tried to clean it up. So 10 minutes. It doesn't make sense, guys. It doesn't. And if you know that one of the victims was actually stabbed 57 times, I mean, even if you went as fast as possible, now you're tacking on so much more time to the timeline. Because to stab somebody 57 times, even if you are muscular and quick, you're still having to penetrate a body. It's still time consuming. Okay? I mean, it's not like you're just doing this. It's not. You're penetrating things. And 10 minutes, there's no way he freaking did it. There's no way. Is it possible that maybe he had been inside, potentially? Maybe somebody else was driving the vehicle? Maybe. Is it possible that maybe he was the getaway driver and they snuck out through another part of the house? Yeah, that's also a possibility. It doesn't mean he was not involved. But the fact that they didn't find more DNA, something else is going on. And the fact that law enforcement is doing this, it's disgusting to me, because they know. I mean, they cannot be that idiotic. They cannot be that stupid to actually believe that this one guy did this horrible thing to 4 people. And again, it wasn't an in and out thing. 57 times. And the other bodies were butchered as well, from what has been said. Okay? There was, whoever did this, I think they were angry. I don't want to say they had a motive, because people can do things for no reason. For example, Ted Bundy was, I think the last crime he committed at a sorority, he didn't really have a motive. He just kind of went in there and went crazy on the sorority girls. He was angry. It was a passionate crime, we'll call. But to do all that in 10 minutes? No way, no how. Something fishy is going on, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I might not, but even if we don't get to the bottom of it, I believe that the truth always comes out. And it's unfortunate, because sometimes that takes decades, meaning that innocent people have spent time in jail. Some have gotten the death penalty. They've lost their lives. And then the truth comes out. So I'm hoping that's not the case this time. But always question everything. okay? It doesn't matter if it's law enforcement giving you this timeline. I don't care if they're wearing uniforms. I don't care if they have guns. I have guns. I used to wear a uniform. Just because people assume this position of authority doesn't mean they always do the right thing. That's what I was talking about yesterday. And we have to hold these people accountable, because if something in this timeline is not making sense, we have to ask questions. We paid them. We, the taxpayers, pay law enforcement with our taxes, with our tax money. They work for us, okay? We don't work for them. We don't believe everything they tell us just because of their job title. I don't care what your job title is. I don't care how much education you have. I don't care. If I see something sketchy, I'm going to call you out. And this is sketchy AF. It is. And we'll have to wait and see. But the point of me making these videos, again, is for all of you guys to realize can't always trust what's put out in the media. There's so much BS. And this case is just blown up. It's everywhere. It's all over the world. And that can lead to data and facts getting distorted. So remember, find your own facts, find your own sources, go straight to the affidavit, do some basic math, look at this whack timeline, because there's no other word for it. It's a whack timeline. I mean, you're extending it over here. You can't even keep a proper timeline. LE, they should be ashamed. You guys should be ashamed. And I'm not anti-cop. You guys know I am not. I have family members who are agents within the country and other countries, and myself, I'm a veteran. I have nothing against authority. I'm not anti-authoritarian. I'm not. I am patriotic. I am a person who wants to stand for our constitutional rights. And I am a good human being, I like to think. So I'm an empathetic person, and if I see something wrong, we need to stand up for it, not just me. We all need to say something. And in this case, because this timeline doesn't make sense, we need to ask questions. And the fact that the prosecutors keep denying the request for discovery is also shady. 10 times? The defense team is asked now a 10th time. 10th request for discovery. And for those of you who don't know, in the United States, if prosecutors find exculpatory evidence that is favorable to Bryan, and they don't disclose it, okay, that is a violation of his constitutional rights to due process. So the fact that they keep saying, no, we don't want to show you the evidence, we'll continue to suppress it 10 times, something else must be sketchy. Because it's common for prosecutors to suppress or try to suppress the evidence maybe once or twice, but 10 times, that's unheard of. And I have a feeling, I don't have proof, but if there is evidence there that is favorable to Bryan, it needs to be disclosed. And that's where I become passionate, because that's where I'm like, now you're getting me riled up, because now you're messing with our constitutional rights. Not only that I fought for, I mean, I have friends, who have passed overseas. You know, I have friends that are getting deployed now, putting themselves in, you know, in situations where they could lose their lives to defend us, to defend these rights that we need to protect. Yet here we are in our own country, having people potentially within our own country trying to strip us of these rights. So it's crazy because the media often says, we need to, you know, veterans and military, it's amazing. We need to protect our rights, our country from invaders, from outsiders. But in this case, it appears more and more that the enemy to our constitutional rights is actually, maybe potentially, in my opinion, the state of Idaho. And we can't let that happen. So I will stay tuned to this case, and I will speak up, because that's the only way we're ever going to evolve. So it's late. My eyes are blurry. I've been, again, I read the affidavit, and so many pages, and I typed up my timeline, and basic math. It's crazy what basic math will get your brain spinning. So ask questions, guys. I ask questions always. Something doesn't make sense, ask questions. Something or someone is doing something sketchy, you have to say something, regardless if they're toting a gun around, regardless if it's a top judge, regardless if it's people who are loaded with money who may try to silence you. In my opinion, we all have to stand up for what's right. I don't care. I don't care in what situation we're all in. And I know it's easier said than done, but that's how I feel right now. That's how I feel today, at least. So yeah. Have a good night, guys. Take care. Time to blow these candles out. Oof.